Welcome into the Tech Ed Podcast. I am your host, Matt Kirkner. So much going on in what we're calling the summer of artificial intelligence here, the summer of 2024. Things taking place in artificial intelligence and machine learning and data science. It just seems like every single week we have another announcement about a huge technological breakthrough in the way that we're gathering data, the way that we're analyzing data, and what we are doing with that data. This is new for some of us, but for a lot of organizations, they've been at this for a while. And we are going to talk today with a guest that I think is going to be absolutely fascinating to our audience, doing some great work in the world of data science and has been doing it for quite some years. Our guest today is Dr. Purush Papatla. He is the co-director of the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute. Purush, it's great to have you with us on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
So let's just start out. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing, when the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute was founded, what's your mission, and so on.
The Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute was founded June of 2018, June 18 of 2018 to be precise. In data science terms, you have to be precise.
Right, of course.
And it was founded as a collaborative effort between Northwestern Mutual Company, one of the most loved and long-standing companies of the community, globally known, and University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I work, and Marquette University, two of the powerhouse higher ed institutions of the region. The whole collaboration apparently started out talking about a cup of coffee or a cup of coffee between our Chancellor Mark Money, President Mike Lovell of Marquette University, and John Schlifsky, CEO of Northwestern Mutual, with Mr. Schlifsky talking about the rising need for and importance of data science and the implications of that for the economy of the region. So his thought was if the three organizations come together and do something about this, it would help the region to bring employers to the region. And that's where the conversation began, and it took shape eventually with the Northwestern Mutual putting in $15 million into the effort, and UW-Milwaukee, my institution, putting in $12.5 million, and Marquette University putting in $12.5 million as well, for a total startup capital of $40 million. The mission, to put in a nutshell, given the goal of attracting employers interested in data science and AI talent, was to build the talent pipeline. So the universities were charged with taking this capital and building new programs to attract students who would be trained in data science and AI, thus meeting the needs of employers and attracting even new employers. And the vision was that they're going to launch programs that are very inclusive. And I'll tell you what I mean by inclusive. Inclusive in the sense of essentially allowing anyone with any background, with any career interest, any professional goal, also being able to pursue data science. So it doesn't matter if you're an artist, it doesn't matter if you're a dancer, it doesn't matter if you're a writer, it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or a physicist, it doesn't matter. All of you should be able to pursue data science because of the importance of data science in virtually every discipline. So that was the vision we started out with, and we, I think, achieved that mission about 2.5 years later. In fall of 22, we introduced a Master of Science program in data science. And the unique aspect of this program, and I'm saying this very honestly because I'll tell you later how I'm involved nationally in data science communities around the country. I know this almost for a fact. No other university offers this program. Our program allows anyone with any background to pursue a master's in data science. They could come in with a background in art or dance. We'll build up the required skills, and then we'll make sure that by the time they graduate, they leave as data scientists who can pursue data science in art or dance if that's what their field is. And that's a 2-year program.
To your point, certainly data science pervades everything from the arts to business to hospitality to technology to engineering. And so it's a really, really flexible model. You know, it's interesting. You think about There's this certainly a little bit of a competition, if you will, both between Marquette and the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Marquette and the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, all great institutions in their own right and doing great things. But you don't see a lot of collaboration necessarily between those universities. So talk a little bit, if you would, Purush, about the importance of collaboration between two universities that historically we probably see as competitive and certainly compete for students.
Great point, but let me address the question of competition before I come to the question of collaboration.
Sure.
So as far as competition goes, I really don't believe that Marquette and UWM were competitors purely for the reason that we targeted very different student populations. So Marquette is a Jesuit private university, focuses on a different segment of students, and we are a public access university, focusing on a very different segment of students. So we're very different in our mission and in our program arrays and what we aim to do. So, I mean, it's a perception that we're competitors, but we're not.
Fair enough.
As far as the benefits of collaboration go, bringing the two together would obviously bring in the benefit of combining and complementing each other's strengths. So, as an example, Marquette has been a big player in the sports side of things. They clearly have a great basketball team, as you obviously know, as an alum and as all of us know.
Right.
But they also have a very strong sports analytics program. So they're very good and they're focused a lot on the data of sports for quite some time, which we have not, because that's not what we play for. No pun intended. But on the other hand, we're also what you would call an R1 university. These are universities that are regarded very highly for their research prowess. We are an R1 university. But the idea is that given that we have that research focus and research strengths over the many decades that we have been building that strengths for, and Marquette has complementary strengths in some disciplines that they're really strong at, bringing the two together would bring the advantages of experience in both these different tracks, right? And think about the power of adding on the financial heft as well as the expertise and experience in the financial services sector, which is one of the largest sectors in the country's economy, together into that pool, and think about the power of that collaboration.
So what I'm hearing is we're really bringing together the best of several worlds and looking at how individual institutions excel in various areas of research, education, and pulling those together in a way that the sum of the parts is greater than they are separately. So I like the way that you're thinking about that. Do you feel like, Purush, do you think collaboration like this is going to proliferate? Are we going to see more of this?
Great question. Purely from a business perspective, given my experience in business and in marketing, I would think that that's where the world is headed, right? Because it's difficult for any one institution to stand by itself and do everything that institutions of higher education like us, like UWM, are interested in doing and are expected to do. Like talking about the R1 idea, research is expensive. It takes tens or hundreds of $millions to do research. No one institution is going to be capable of doing it other than the few rich institutions of the country. So there's no option but for institutions to come together to continue to deliver on the mission of institutions of higher education. I don't see that as an if or a but as a certainty. It's almost going to happen, but I can't tell you when.
I'm with you. I think there's going to be tremendous opportunities for collaboration. It is going to be fascinating to see in some ways how education is disrupted positively, I think, as we look at additional collaboration that's taking place. I'm glad that you mentioned, by the way, that your background, when somebody hears co-director of the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute, right away people have to assume that you're you're a PhD in data science and you live and breathe in the world of data and analytics, and certainly you do. But you do have a business and marketing background, which is interesting, and I think tremendously influences the work that you're doing, I'm sure, and also gives you an interesting perspective on what's happening here in Southeast Wisconsin. I believe we've talked on the podcast prior that Microsoft recently made a huge announcement about a $3.3 billion data center that they're building about 40 miles, give or take, south of your campus in Milwaukee, making tremendous investments. And we have all kinds of things that are going to flow out of that, becoming a bit of a hub for innovation, technology, research around artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science. What What is it about this region, do you think, Purush, that is attracting this kind of investment and interest?
I'll address that question, but let me also start by something that you mentioned about my background, not because I want to talk about that at length, but I want to also point out that marketing and business are perhaps some of the most data intensive fields as opposed to public perception. And the reason for that is very simple.
Sure.
Take advertising, for example. Television advertising alone in this country costs $250 billion per year.
Wow.
And no one knows whether it's working or not. Till at least 10 years ago, people didn't know, right? Whether ads work or not. But today we have enormous amounts of data that we're gathering that let businesses answer that question. And every percent saved on advertising spending is equivalent to $2.5 billion.
Wow.
So you can see why data and data science and AI have become such big players in marketing and business. So putting that aside, coming to Wisconsin and why Wisconsin is attracting more and more tech players, I think the answers lie in the fact that one, we as a culture have this ability and desire and commitment to work hard in our DNA. We are hardworking people, right? I have family in the East Coast, and I've traveled all over the country and the world. I have to say that even small things I notice. For example, my daughter lives in the East Coast, and if you go take your car for service, the difference in responsiveness and the timeliness of the service for the car between our region and the East Coast is palpable. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
So, one, our people are hardworking. And two, the Midwest, and particularly the Milwaukee region, is far less expensive, capital wise and labor cost wise, than even Chicago. So, that's the other reason why I think tech companies would definitely want to come here. Three, NMDSI and all of the other players in the region have been noticed around the country. For example, we have a very strong and robust and really thriving startup kind of ecosystem in the Milwaukee area. The three together have combined to draw tech investors to the region. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. People are finally taking notice of our work ethic, of our strong startup culture and support of startup companies and support of entrepreneurship. Certainly, the other thing that I would point to is the concentration of manufacturing here in Wisconsin. You think about the markets that are probably being most transformed by artificial intelligence and machine learning and data science, and certainly you point to the work in business and the work in marketing hugely impacted and affected, but other markets, in the ag market, we've got tremendous amounts of agriculture here and things happening in precision agriculture, things happening in Industry 4.0, advanced manufacturing, smart technology in the manufacturing sector, things happening in energy, less so here in Wisconsin, but certainly in places like North Dakota, things happening in the world of EV and mobility in the state of Michigan. I mean, the Midwest is really becoming in many ways a hub of these technologies. It's a really great time to be here. And to your point, the low cost of living and the ability to invest in this region at a lower cost and create a higher ROI for whatever that endeavor is. I think we're just really getting started on what the future is going to look like here in Southeast Wisconsin. You're in a perfect position with a front row seat to what's taking place in terms of that transformation. On this whole topic of how quickly this is all changing, 5-10 years ago, we might have been talking about data science. We weren't necessarily talking at scale about artificial intelligence and machine learning. I hear a lot of people, frankly, using those terms interchangeably, data science and AI. Obviously, you and I know that they're different. But can you, for our audience, kind of discern a little bit when you talk about data science, how does that differ from disciplines like artificial intelligence and machine learning?
Okay. I'm trying to see how quickly I can summarize DS, AI, and ML. So data science has traditionally been the science of data. Not to just play on the words, but it's all about data and setting up the data and using the data to pull insights from the data. So, if you will, data science has a history of 200 to 300 years. Every statistician is a data scientist. So, it started maybe 300. It's coincidentally, or for Wisconsin, data science and statistics started in ag. When it started when scientists about 200 years ago wanted to find out how plotting crops in different regions of a site with different exposures to sunlight affected the yields.
Interesting.
They constructed experiments where they plot the same seeds in same quantities in different regions with different sunlights and compare the yield from the plots. And they developed the statistical models to analyze where crops should be planted to maximize the yield. That's where statistics started.
Interesting. 200 years ago.
Yeah. So that's data science. It's working with data.
Okay.
Now, all the methods and techniques to pull insights out of data, which is what the data science toolkit is, are the ones that support AI and ML. So let's talk about what AI and ML are. Starting with ML. ML, as the name goes, machine learning, is teaching a machine to learn from experience just like we humans learn. So I'm talking to you. We met at that meeting at the WCTC some time ago.
We did.
That's the first time I saw you. The next time I saw you, I'm recognizing you as Matt Kirchner, right? I would have called you Matt Kirchner, and there's a reason I'm mentioning that. But I know you as Matt because I saw you once.
Right.
You now told me that you're Matt Kirchner. I learned from that the next time I'm going to call you Kirchner without thinking of you as Kirchner. So I'm learning from experience. That's learning that we humans engage in automatically. Machines have to be trained to do that. So machine learning is all about taking a machine, a computer in other words, giving it enough data that it can learn from and improve itself. And how does that happen? So you give a lot of data, you build a statistical model. That's where data science comes in. The statistical model predicts what might happen, and the machine is then given another algorithm that's going to compare what happened with what is expected to happen. The difference between the predictions and outcomes are then fed into another algorithm to ensure that the machine learns from that and says, this is what happened last time. The outcomes were different from the predictions by this much, so I need to adjust what I'm expecting by this much. So next time it knows to expect something different. And as time goes on, and this is repeated over and over again, you come to a point where the machine will have perfect knowledge about that particular event.
That's a great explanation.
So machine has learned. That is machine learning.
Love that.
So artificial intelligence goes beyond that and gives machines the ability to go beyond this experience itself. So the machine has learned what to expect and what not to expect given a data set. That's machine learning. Now, if the machine is given the ability to also predict what it should expect the next time a new data set comes in, it's thinking like a human, right? So next time I see someone that maybe looks like you somewhat, but is not really you, I know it's not Matt. So I'm able to use my past experience to assess that this looks like Matt, but it's not Matt. A machine can't do that. A machine has become artificial intelligent if it's able to do that and say, if I see someone that looks like Matt, that's not Matt, that's not Matt. And that's what drives all the computer vision algorithms that we see. So that's AI.
Fascinating. That was a great explanation, and I think I'll be honest with you. That's what happens when you take somebody who understands the world of marketing and business and ask them to explain a really complex concept, which is you get an answer that's actually logical and you can follow. And so I appreciate that very astute explanation. So, the research is rooted in data science, but tell us a little bit about the student experience, the projects that they're working on, and the role of data and technology in those projects.
We actually have a very unique program that we recently launched through the Institute starting from last year that we call the Student Scholar Program, which actually gives students a stipend of $2,500 to $5,000 per semester to work with a faculty sponsor on a research project. That's all they do. It's not a course. They're working with a faculty sponsor on an interesting problem. And you cannot believe the number of proposals and the type of topics that people are working on. So, for example, there's a project that we have right now that is looking at the risk of sleep apnea and susceptibility to cancer due to long COVID. And using data science, right? Another example of a project, a student is working with the faculty in health sciences on how to use robotic assistants to help visually impaired individuals, a data science and AI driven project. Another example, talking about art and other fields that are being affected by data science and AI. Can you use AI models to ask questions on creativity and get creative answers back? How far can you push it? That's a research project, right? One of my students is working on a project that we're trying to use generative AI to generate video and still creatives for advertising at scale that are totally personalized. So can you use ChatGPT or many other platforms, large language models, to prompt them to generate a video that is exactly tailored to get response from you, Matt Courtney, based on what Matt will respond to. So think about a world where we'll have an infinite supply of advertising creators rather than the one ad that you see over and over again on TV, where every ad is going to be unique to every individual that's watching it.
That's absolutely
Can
fascinating.
you do that
Right.
with generative? So those are the kind of questions that we are working on. Unbelievable array of questions.
Those are, I mean, every one of those is fascinating. And you think about the data available with regard to COVID and the data available with regard to cancer and the data available with regard to sleep apnea, pulling all three of those together. That's fascinating. I want to make sure that last example resonated with our audience. I'm sure it did. But you think about having a world in which this $250 billion a year that we're spending on TV advertising, for example, is now catered specifically to the individual, so that a product or a solution that somebody is trying to market to me as an individual that ad would be unique to me. Nobody else on the planet would see that exact ad. It would be based on using generative AI, what a large language model knows about me personally, about my tastes, my interests, and so on, and taking all that and having an ad that is specifically generated toward me.
Let me add one thing there. The interest of ensuring privacy, the large language model does not have to know you personally. It only has to know something that's related to who you are. It doesn't even have to know. That's what all the marketing data and models have done in the past. You don't need to know about someone individually to the extent that you know everything about them personally and their confidential information. You need to be able to typecast them.
Just taking an example, I mean, all of us have had the experience where we searched for something on Google and 3 hours later we're getting an ad for that. I mean, that happens all the time. Is it the same thing or how is it different?
That's a very good question. So there, the ad that is kind of tracking you is driven by, I'm sure you know about this, given how long you've been in this field, the cookies, right? The cookies get stored on a computer, and the cookie keeps track of what you're interested in. The cookie is shared with the advertisers who are interested in selling the same kind of products with you, for you, and then the ads that are targeted to you kind of draw on the information in the cookie, right?
Right.
That's one way of personally targeting you. But
Right.
let's say that I know that Mark Kirkner belongs to a group of people that are, let's say, for lack of a better phrase, let's say belong to type Z, whatever that Z is. And I can say everything about type Z. Type Z has this kind of an income, type Z has this kind of a demographic profile, type Z is likely to be found in these geographic spots in the country, type Zs buy these kind of products. An LLM knows all that. And once I know that Matt falls into type Z, I don't need to know more about Matt's personal, protected personal information. I know enough about Matt to this type Z profile to present to Matt an ad that Matt is likely to respond to. That's the idea.
Got it. So a very, very personalized, specific ad based upon all of that data. How far away are we from actually having that, do you think?
I think given where things are today, we should be seeing things like this coming up in the next 2 to 4 years. That's my assumption.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. It's a fascinating time we live in, and fascinating to think how quickly that technology is moving. If you think about the industries that are going to be the most transformed and the ones that you're most focused on, are there specific industries that the Data Science Institute, Purush, spends more time on than others?
We actually have been very clear on where we want to focus on. So given that we're a data science institute and given the rising importance of AI, our first big area of focus is advancing AI itself, doing research on AI. But we want to also use AI to advance healthcare. We want to use AI to ensure that there are no health and wealth inequities. So that's a big area of focus for us. And we want to be the foremost players in ensuring that while using AI, we are also being ethical in the use of AI. We want to ensure that there's enough research on the ethical side of AI to address the kind of questions that you kind of employed, right? We're not breaking anyone's privacy. We're not doing things that we shouldn't be doing. Because given that it's all being done by machines, you need to put enough guardrails for the machines and the LLMs that they don't go beyond those and affect people in ways that they shouldn't be affected. So we want to be players in that. So those are the areas that we're focusing on.
You know, it's interesting when we think about Northwestern Mutual, a lot of us think about life insurance, financial management and investment and financial planning and so on. One might think that a lot of the focus would be on the finance area, and it sounds like you're doing some of that.
We do. And that's the area, that's the other area that we are focusing on. And that's what we're calling behavioral economics, which I'm sure you know about.
Daniel Kahneman.
Exactly. So it's essentially building on the Kahneman kind of work and ensuring that we're using data to present information in a way that maximizes people's welfare. That's the idea behind behavioral economics. And so we're trying to use AI to discover those insights that will help us help people be financially responsible and sound.
Well, and that's got to be quite fulfilling in terms of a mission where you're knowing that your mission is actually related to how do we use all these tools to help people to improve their lives. And that's obviously a key part. You've mentioned that a number of times, Purush, as we've talked on this episode of the podcast. You gave some great examples of research projects that your students have been involved in, you know, given that you're now 6 years into this. Do you have any examples of products that have been commercialized or of, you know, commercial products that have been influenced by the work at the Data Science Institute?
I can tell you of products that have been commercialized, which I, of course, didn't get paid for through the research that I did.
Okay.
Which could come under the purview of NMDSI, although they were
Sure.
not done as part of NMDSI. So, for example, I worked on a project some time ago that was published and has gotten a lot of visibility, where we looked at the question of how colors influence people. We're all influenced by what we see, and the question that we were interested in was, given that there's so much online commerce going on today, and retailers present products on their websites, and given that there's limited real estate on the web page, can we say something about what colors the pictures presented on the website should have in order to grab people's attention and get them interested in whatever the retailer is trying to sell? That's the question that we're interested in. So a doctoral student of mine at that time was now a faculty at the University of North Carolina, and I started looking into this with the collaboration with the company. We looked at 150 national retailers, big brands, working with a company that had a platform that was tracking how people are going through their search. Nothing personal was revealed. It was only tracking when people come to a site, what pictures they click on, what they do after they click, which products they buy, and all that. So we analyzed 18 million clicks from these retailers, and we came up with the finding that the presence of tones of blue and green attract people to a product, but at the same time, a little bit of a red also gets them excited about the product, but the red should not be too much. And so we actually showed through rigorous data science method that a specific combination of these tones increases sales of products. And so this company that we were working with took these findings, they're working with Instagram, and Instagram took them to Facebook. Facebook actually applied these findings to their advertising algorithms, and we reported in the paper that as a result, advertisers on their site saw hundreds of thousands of dollars increase in sales after changing the way the pictures are presented.
Perfect example, absolutely. And you think about, first of all, having the availability of that data and then being able to slice and dice it in a way that drives you to that conclusion and in a way that then is monetized by those companies using that technology or using that knowledge to, in this case, just change the colors of how they're presenting products and how they're presenting their advertising in having a direct correlation with increased revenue and increased profitability. That's a really fascinating application of data, and it's just going to be so interesting over the course of the next 3, 5, 10 years to see all the different applications that folks are coming up with. Of course, all of this requires a level of skill. It requires a talent pipeline in the world of data science itself. Let's talk about that a little bit. How are you contributing to the advancement of data science as a discipline, both in education, and in commercialization and industry?
Well, as I mentioned, we obviously started these academic programs that are producing the talent that employers are going to need. And rather than just putting them through classes and giving them grades for the classes and giving them a degree at the end, we're ensuring that they work on real projects hands-on. through the type of student scholar research program that I mentioned. But in addition to that, our degree programs require students to, before they graduate, to do one of three things to be able to graduate. They have to work on a capstone project, which is actually on a real problem. They have to work in a company, a second option, through an internship on a real problem, or they have to work on a thesis with a faculty member on a real problem and present the thesis to a committee. So the point is that by the time our students graduate from our programs, they're ready to hit the ground running and take on real problems because they've done that as part of their degree programs. They don't just have theoretical knowledge, they have practical knowledge as well. So that's how we're contributing to the employer side of things. On the research side of things, we also have what we call the Rhodes Scholar Program. Rhodes, ROADS, is an acronym that gives about $100,000 per project to faculty from both universities to work on new problems that advance AI and applications of AI in different disciplines. So that's a lot of money for faculty to work on and to advance an issue. So that's the second stream that we have to advance research in data science and AI. In addition to that, we also have a third program where we provide up to $50,000 to faculty and 2 years of time to develop courses in evolving and new topics of AI and data science. So we don't want to sit still with the courses that we have. We want to keep the programs up to date by adding new courses continuously because of how rapidly this field is evolving. So we're covering all the bases and ensuring that our programs are relevant and contributing to employers and to the field of AI and data science.
It is interesting how fast this technology is moving. As you know, I spend a fair amount of time talking about the basics of artificial intelligence and machine learning and so on to audiences all over the country. And there was a day when, on different topics, I could write content and deliver that content over and over and over for a matter of years. Anymore, it's like you almost have to completely rewrite the content every 90 days to 6 months because of how quickly all of this is changing. And so you're talking about doing exactly the same thing. And to the point of where all this is going, would love to hear your take on some of the emerging trends in data science. What are some of the things that maybe people aren't talking about as much now, but that you see as being incredibly important or prolific over the next 5 years or so?
I think where we are going to head to is what people have begun to call generalized AI, not generative AI, but generalized AI. Generalized AI is AI that eventually brings machines to the point that they are at the same level as humans or even beyond. And that's where we're targeting to get to. Whether that's good or bad is an entirely different discussion.
Some call the singularity. Is that the same thing?
The singularity,
Yeah, okay.
exactly. That's where we're headed. And towards that end, many developments in AI and the technologies of AI are helping us get there. So, for example, right now we're at a point where machines are able to understand and work with data of many types other than numerical data that computers originally started with. So when IBM first built the computer, all that it could do was deal with a bunch of numbers. We went beyond that, we went to textual data. Now we are at a point where we can work with visual data. That's where computer vision comes in. We're working with the audio data. We're now going to get to a point where every sense that a human body has that generates data is data that a machine can also work with. Olfactory data, the sense of smell, that is data. We're going to see that happening. There's also a phrase for this, it's called perceptive data, which is data that's related to us having a sense of how we are moving in the world. So, for example, when I'm moving my hand, I have a sense of which direction I'm moving the hand in and what direction I have to move the hand in to make a gesture. I'm doing that effortlessly. A machine can't do that. We have a sense inside us that guides us to that. That's data. Giving machines that capability is another capability that we are going to get to. The ability for machines to feel. We feel hunger. Machines can't feel hunger. Making machines feel that. So we're going to get to that point. That's the direction we're going in. Making machines feel, act, and behave like human beings. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 4 years, but I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, I think Andrew Ng had said something somewhere in the next 30 to 50 years, I think was his prediction. What's your thought?
Earlier than
Yeah,
that, I think.
interesting. That's so fascinating. Okay, so let's dive in now. We are talking with Dr. Purush Papatla, who is the co-director of the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute, having a great conversation about artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, and really applied data science, and all the different endeavors in which we can use this incredible technology. So all of this takes talent. You've talked about this, the amazing students, the incredible research that they're doing. Tell us a little bit about the state of the talent pool. Are we creating enough individuals that have knowledge in data science? Do we need to do more? How are we doing so far? And then let's talk about what we need to do in the future.
Great question, and there's a very clear answer to that. No, we're not.
Okay.
I don't think any region is generating enough talent to cover the data science and AI needs of companies.
Okay.
The needs are growing exponentially. The growth in the talent pool is at best growing linearly, to use data science terms, right? And the reason for that is that building usable, reliable data science skills in people is not an easy task. It needs a lot of training. It needs a lot of, once again, to use the computer term, debugging, right? So they work on projects, they learn what went well, they learn what didn't go well, and they improve from that. So even if someone graduates with a degree in data science on day one, just like how a physician who just came out of a medical school and through a residency program is never put individually to take care of a patient. A surgeon would train, I know this for a fact because of some family history, a surgeon would have to go through four years of medical school, 4 years of residency, 3 years of surgical training.
Wow.
After an undergraduate degree.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 15 years of training
Right.
to become a surgeon.
Yeah.
And even after that, that surgeon would never be left alone to take care of a surgery by himself or herself.
Sure.
The surgeon would be paired with an experienced surgeon to make sure that nothing goes wrong, given the importance of the surgery, right? Same idea applies in the case of data science. You gain from experience. So you can't create talent fast enough, but we're addressing that challenge by attracting a strong pool of students, a large pool of students to the program that we created. So for example, each year our graduate program receives between 400 to 600 applications for about 40 student slots. So we're turning away people, but we're selecting the best and we're getting them through the program, right? And we're giving them as much opportunity as possible to do work hands-on with real problems so that they are able to help employers when they graduate. So we're building the talent pools, but we're definitely, I'd be lying if I tell you we're building it fast enough. We're not. But we're doing the best we can to build it as fast as we can. But to augment what we're doing, we're not just focusing on the higher education market, we're also going all the way back to the K-12 pool. In year 2 of the NMDSI, we at UWM started a program. We have a program called College for Kids, where middle school to high school kids could come in the summer and learn about things that they would learn in college. That has been going on for about 30 years, that program. But the year after we started NMDSI, we started a program in that College for Kids program that we call the Data Science Certificate. And this certificate gives middle school to high school students the opportunity to get exposed to data science and also earn a certificate in data science over a 2-year period in the program. They can come for 2 summers and get a data science certificate, learn about what data science is, get hands-on experience in data science, and our hope is that this will stimulate an interest in them to pursue a data science career. And that has already worked. We are getting applications from that pool to our university. So we're doing all of this to the extent we can to speed up the growth of talent as fast a pace as we possibly can.
Tremendous amount of research around the importance of inspiring young people toward careers as early as middle school and giving them those experiences so that they know what they like and maybe even what they don't like. And the kids, the students that like it, come back and get inspired toward these opportunities in data science. If you've got 600 applicants for 40 positions, certainly demand on the part of the students isn't a problem. And it sounds like for as much talent as you can produce, there's a demand on the part of employers for even more of it. So hopefully going forward, we'll have more and more opportunities for the students that are interested in pursuing careers in data science to have those opportunities coming back on the other side. As you look at these students, Purush, and you look at young people considering careers in data science, are there skills or are there personality traits or qualities that you think are really, really important for us to instill in those people as they both consider these careers and as we produce data science talent for the future?
Oh, definitely, definitely. The one thing that we always stress, and I stress in my graduate program and then graduate course in data science and AI, is that the value of data science and AI is much higher depending on the person who's using data science and AI. And I'll explain what I mean by that. It's not enough to be skilled in data science and AI. It's important for the data scientist to be able to communicate the data science to people around him or her. It's not enough to be enough to sit behind a computer and program and pull insights out. If I can't tell you what those insights are as a decision maker you are, I've done nothing to advance the cause of data science, right? If there's a physician who wants to improve the outcomes of his or her surgery, and there's a lot of data coming in from surgeries from every smart machine that physicians are using today, a data scientist who can analyze all the data and get to some findings and say, aha, I did get some findings, I'm done, is not going to help. The data scientist has to have the ability to take those findings and tell the surgeon, this is what this finding means in terms of what you can do to improve the outcomes of the surgeries from now on. Otherwise, the surgeon is not going to be helped. So the point is that successful data scientists and artificial intelligence personnel are those that do not just have the skills, but have the ability to work as communicators. They need to be able to work with a team of people that are using their skills and their findings and translate their findings into what it means. And that's the skill that we need to have. And that's what we're trying to build through this interdisciplinary program that we have. As a part of this program, we require people to be able to write well, pass through a writing course, and present their writings to faculty. Otherwise, they can't complete the program. The reason for that is that they have to be able to translate what they're doing into things that people understand.
Right.
So that's the key skill.
Got it. Yeah. Before you've got value in the marketplace, it's one thing to be able to analyze data. It's another thing to be able to draw conclusions. It's a third thing entirely to be able to say, this is what the data means. This is what our conclusions mean. And this is how we can use it to improve operations, to improve an organization, to improve the lives of people. So that ability to communicate, as well as knowing all of the different tools available for data analysis and drawing conclusions, really, really important for us to teach in undergraduate programs, to teach in graduate programs, to teach in PhD programs, and also to teach, I would argue, in K-12 as well, because a lot of those good habits, we create that foundation when students are still in their elementary and secondary education pathways. So
Totally.
On that topic, we're going to go back in time, and in as much as we have a lot of young people that listen to this podcast every week, I want to go all the way back to that 15-year-old Purush Papatla and ask you this question. If you were to go back in time to that 15-year-old young man and give him one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
That's a long time ago, but the one piece of advice that I would give myself or any other 15-year-old is to not to be afraid to explore. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So I grew up in India. I'm from India. And in India, when I grew up, it was clear that people went into one of three careers: engineering, medicine, or public service. Because these are the three career paths that offer the most stability and most financial rewards and most respect in society. So I followed that path. I went into engineering through a very competitive process. I got actually my degree undergrad was in mechanical engineering, and then I became a design engineer at one of the largest companies in the country, designing trucks, and I hated it. I said, this is not for me. It's just so mundane, boring, mechanical. No pun intended. Again, because I was a mechanical engineer. But I said, I have to do something else. So I started looking around and I got really interested in marketing, but I was scared of jumping into it. I said, what do I do in marketing, right? So I wanted to explore further, and then I applied for graduate programs in the US because I thought that's where I would have some opportunities to explore beyond that box that I was in. And I got into a master's program in industrial systems engineering because of my background, which I pursued. And that's where I just literally took like fish to water to computers. That they were just starting out. And I said, no, systems engineering was for me, it's for computers. So I got into computers designing. I don't know if you are old enough to have heard about compilers. Compilers were actually the heart of computers at the time. They are the ones who took instructions from you in computing languages and translated them into numbers that computers understood. So I took a course in compiler design and actually wrote a compiler of my own. And then I took that compiler and I went to Silicon Valley looking for jobs, and I got a job as a compiler designer. But just to hedge my bets, given my long-standing interest in marketing, I applied to doctoral programs in marketing around the country before I went out to Silicon Valley. So I got that job, I got the contract, and they're asking me to sign the contract. And then I got a call from Professor Philip Kotler, who is the world's leading guru in marketing at the Kellogg School in Northwestern University. He said, hey, we love your background, we love your application interest in marketing, we want you to come here, we'll give you a full ride. And I was totally torn. I said, my God, I have this job here, I have this doctoral program with a totally uncertain path, what do I do? So I talked to my family, and in India, you really listen to your parents. I called my dad. My dad said, forget it, you're not doing a job. You don't need a job right now, go to the doctoral program. Go as far as you can academically. So I went, and the rest is history. So I went into marketing, and typically when you got a doctoral degree in any field in those days, the typical path is to go into academia. So I went into academia, came here as a professor at Milwaukee, and occasionally I look back and think about what life would have been if I took a different path. But I must say that I'm really happy with what path I took, purely because of the fact that marketing has given me the opportunity to combine the creative and science side of things. I can explore all I want on the creative side, but I can bring in all of my data science skills, as I gave you in that example of the pictures, and do both. And so that's what I enjoy the most. So coming back to your question, if I were to have stuck with the norm in my country, India, at the time, and said, I want to be an engineer and stay in engineering, I wouldn't have explored and I wouldn't have come to where I have. So I think you have to be willing to explore, and you have to be, as a young child or a 15-year-old, it's going to be difficult to accept that, but you have to be willing to accept the discomfort of uncertainty. Without that, there's no reward. You have to be willing to accept that. That's the advice I would give.
Absolutely. So don't be afraid to explore. Recognize that there's this uncertainty in our future, and you have to be a bit comfortable with that. And if you do both of those, you give up that fear of exploring. You take the time and make the effort to explore whatever endeavor you're interested in pursuing. And then you combine that with an understanding that, look, we don't always know the future. In fact, we never know the future, and being comfortable with that and recognizing that you'll figure it out along the way. Really, really important advice for a 15-year-old, whether that was the 15-year-old Purush Papatla or any student that's listening to us here on the Tech Ed Podcast. Absolutely wonderful advice. Dr. Purush Papatla, thank you so much for taking some time with us. He is, of course, the co-director of the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute. We've had a wonderful conversation about data science, applications, education, the need for more and more talent in and around data science. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed this program.
Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly enjoyed our discussion with Dr. Purush Papatla, the co-director of the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute, as data, as artificial intelligence, and machine learning continue to transform every single sector within our economy. These conversations, we continue to learn more, and I certainly learned a tremendous amount from Dr. Papatla. So appreciate him being on. Also appreciate our listeners joining us. We had all kinds of resources, all kinds of research and so on that were referenced in this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. We'll be sure to link that information up in the show notes. We do, of course, have the best show notes in the business. So check out the website. These particular show notes for this episode can be found at techedpodcast.com/Papatla. That is techedpodcast.com/PAPATLA. And don't forget to engage with us on social media. We are all over Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. It doesn't matter where you go in the world of social media, you will find the Tech Ed Podcast. When you do find us, be sure to engage, follow us, connect, comment. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to see you again next week on the Tech Ed Podcast. Until then, I am your host, Matt Kirkner. Thanks for being with us.